This economy sucks. So why is the stock market booming? I might not agree with his answer here, but I thought it'd be worth listening. I'd like to know what they say.
Paying attention to financial news, you've probably heard the same line every time the stock market has a little whoopsie daisy.
$58 billion wiped off the exchange today.
$136 billion was wiped off.
$5 trillion in value had been wiped from the markets in just 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Every time green line does not go up, we are told some company or the market has lost, destroyed, or wiped out however many billions of dollars. But alright then, where does that money actually go? It might not surprise you to learn that headlines like this are written more for shock and awe than genuine insight. But the simple truth is that the money doesn't actually go anywhere, because it never existed in the first place. Sort of. If you can look beyond the flashy headlines like this and actually understand what they are trying to say, you are going to be much better equipped to make sensible financial decisions when everybody else is busy losing their minds and, if they are lucky enough, maybe even their retirement savings too. This basic understanding has probably actually never been more important than it is right now, because the stock market is breaking new records every single week. Nobody knows if or when the party will stop, but what we do know is that, in this particular case, the money doesn't actually have anywhere else to go.
$5 trillion in value had been wiped from the markets in just 3 weeks.
Gold prices hit a record high on Tuesday.
Holy gold!
The dream of owning the house with the white picket fence increasingly given.
Bro, I convinced Aiden, bro. I flipped him. What it took was the book club. I made Aiden read How Countries Go Broke, and then Aiden told me ever since he read it, he's been like laying in bed next to his partner. It's like the meme where she's like, I bet he's thinking about other women. He's thinking about gold. My brother's a financial advisor, and he's Aiden's financial advisor. Aiden went to him and he's like, I want to buy some gold. It's so funny. It'd be funny if gold crashes right now. At least I'd have the joy of seeing Aiden lose some money. God willing. Could slow down his plane to Sweden. Who's Aiden? Aiden Ross, my friend. You don't know him? One of the best streamers of all time. God of Kick. Presidential candidate 2028. Where'd I put this video? Where'd I put this fucking video? So we were here.
Breaking new records every single week. Nobody knows.
This has hit a...
You could buy a house tomorrow if the price was right, if the interest rates were where they needed to be.
Help for the economy from Washington remains nowhere in sight.
So I'm a little annoyed that everyone keeps asking for lower interest rates in order to buy housing. What you want is lower prices. Yes, if interest rates were lower, you could take out $1 million loan and still afford the payment. But you're still bidding up these crazy fucking price house. Prices don't go down. They are going down. The thing is, the higher interest rates are working. They are slowly but surely breaking the back of the people holding out these high prices. They've been trying to keep the prices up, but the price cuts keep happening. 10K, 10K, 10K. It's been working. It's obviously a painful process, but it's been working. And then right as like it's about to fucking do the job, they're going to try and cut rates to zero to fucking reinflate the bubble. Like literally looking at Zillow, all houses have price cuts. Yeah. Yeah, they all have price cuts. What's to stop BlackRock from continuing to buy then rent? They're not doing that because they lose money. The only reason they kept buying houses is because the prices kept going up. If the prices go down, they sell houses. They're trying to get out of it. They bought it as an asset because they thought it would go up. So it's just, it's annoying that everyone says we got to cut rates for housing. Cutting rate for housing just means you can take out a bigger fucking loan.
There are really 3 different levels of technical explanation for what happens to money during a crash. The good enough for most people level, the armchair market analyst level, and then the level that considers debt, consumption, and all the different asset markets that are getting kind of weird at the moment. Now, most people don't even get level 1 right, but I promise none of this is as complicated as the financial bros would like you to think. And actually seeing how these markets work is the only way to understand how messed up they really are at the moment. But alright, most of the time when headlines are talking about billions of dollars being destroyed or whatever, what they are really saying is that the market capitalization of a company or group of companies has been repriced. This is just calculated using the number of outstanding shares multiplied by the price the last share was traded at. So for example, Nvidia currently has about 24 billion outstanding shares, and right now those shares are trading at a price of about $170, which gives the company a market cap of $4.1 trillion. If for some reason tomorrow people decided to start trading Nvidia shares at $85, then it would have the market cap of the company and you would inevitably see headlines about Nvidia losing $2 trillion. But they didn't really lose $2 trillion. They were just revalued using this very crude calculation. Now, technically, this could actually help NVIDIA's ongoing business operations. Since the AI boom, the company has been doing a lot of share buybacks.
But $2 trillion is lost. Like, people look at their portfolio, they open up their little banking app, and they see, and their value is less collectively across all of them. They have less money. They feel poorer. They spend less. If they were to liquidate, they would get less. So they never had it. They did have it. They did. They had the capability of selling it for money. The money is not made up. Saying it's made up is actually a dumb person's way of thinking about it. It's not made up. It is the valuation of the company. You can borrow against that. You can spend against that. It could be collateral. I mean, it's not made up. It's a real. You know what I'm saying? It's not made up. It's not the money the company owns. No, it's not the money the company owns, but it's the money that shareholders own or believe they have. And in fact, individually, all do have. They can't collectively all sell, but they all individually have that valuation when it's higher. Oh, the poor shareholders. That doesn't even have anything to do with what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether we care about the shareholders or not. I swear to God, some of you just say, oh, the poor shareholders every 5 minutes because you think you're contributing to the conversation. You don't know what's going on. You can't follow, but you know that makes you sound kind of like edgy. Like you have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Oh, the poor shareholders. Oh, like we need to, you're not even following. Oh God.
Backs. Well, they will use their profits to buy
chill. It's dark humor, liberal.
Shareholders to take it out of circulation. They're only supposed to do this when management thinks the company is undervalued. So if their stock halves in price, they will get twice as many shares for the same money, which should be a good thing, right? Well, this is assuming, of course, that they aren't just doing stock buybacks to drive up an already hyped up stock. Part of what is making the current stock market so strange at the moment is that by far the biggest net purchaser of shares in these companies are these companies.
Yeah.
According to the Fed's Z1 financial accounts, households made net purchases of about $100 billion of stock in 2024. This was dwarfed by listed corporations that did over $625 billion worth of net buying, meaning that companies were buying 6 times more of their own stock than actual stockholders were. Now, that doesn't seem great, but it's actually worse than it sounds. The whole point of a stock market is that it's supposed to be a place where companies can go and sell their shares to raise money to fund business operations. This net sales figure also includes the company subtracting from this net number by conducting IPOs. The total gross value of stock buybacks was over $1 trillion within 2024 alone. It just so happens that companies also raised about $375 billion in the same year. Now, this has helped to increase market capitalization.
My own workplace!
Driving up share prices. But that.
Where's my desk? I wonder what fuck is sitting in my desk now. Cross this bridge, go in, go to the right. I was right here. Bam. Right there, baby. The Atrioc desk.
It's not even the biggest.
I used to take my dog, little Maya, out here onto this grass right here and let her run. She'd have zoomies all around here.
Problem. It will actually get more important later on as we go into how asset markets are supposed to function. But for now, for level 1, a market crash is just a readjustment in market capitalization. Unless a company is planning to sell it.
Let you bring your dog to work? They actually did up until, it was like right before COVID. Like 6 months before COVID, some dog either bit or just slobbered on a high-ranking executive. And then an email went around to the whole company saying dogs weren't allowed at work anymore. I was so pissed, dude. Because now I had to find a sitter for Maya because me and Ari both worked. It was so annoying.
Its own stock to raise money to fund future projects, its day-to-day market capitalization shouldn't impact its performance. Market capitalization is kind of like GDP. It's a number that we use a lot because it's sort of easy to calculate, and it's good enough as a rough indication of if things are going.
NVIDIA had this beast cafeteria, which is all manner of good food. And so when Maya, my dog, would be at the office with me, she would eat like a queen. Like I would go get little bits of chicken and corn and get this whole bowl for her and put it down. And she would just go and slurp that bowl clean. And then I would call Aiden up and tell him to come by so that my dog could bother him while he's trying to work.
In the right direction or not. Now, a lot of people, when they learn this, take it to mean that market cap is irrelevant. A $10 banana is no better than a banana that's on clearance for $5. And while that's true, a sudden price drop on anything can be an indication that there is something rotting away beneath the surface. So for the next level of understanding, you need to do what the journalists writing the headlines aren't willing to do, and actually follow the money. Now, I know I just said that if a stock halves in value, that doesn't necessarily mean that any money has gone anywhere. But in highly liquid markets, such a scenario—
this just isn't true. I don't know how to say this. This is not. It is not true. Okay? First of all the employees are paid in stock-based compensation. So if the stock halves in values, they are materially receiving less compensation. Like everyone in the company is making less compensation. I'm trying to see where he's getting, because it's not like a stock halving in value is not like, oh, it's just a magical number, doesn't mean anything. It means it's real money that is being lost at every step of the chain.
Scenario can only really happen one way. The NASDAQ doesn't get to slap a 50% off clearance label on Nvidia stock like Walmart does on questionable milk. The way the price moves in these kinds of markets is that if there are more sellers than buyers, the price falls, and if there are more buyers than sellers, the price rises. When people are panic selling stocks, they are still getting money in exchange for their stocks. It may not be as much as they wanted, but what they then do with that money is where things get interesting. Let's say you had some spare money. Yeah, I know, but just pretend with me for a second. With your pile of cash, you have some options. You can invest into the stock market, real estate, bonds, gold, alternatives like cryptocurrency, or you could just hold on to your cash.
Okay.
Alternatively, if you just want to enjoy your life right now, you could spend that money on goods and services like a new car, a bigger house to live in, or a nice vacation.
Yeah.
All of these activities that improve your quality of life are generally classified as consumption. Depending on where you and everybody else who has spare money puts their cash, it will increase the value of these markets. So if everybody buys gold, its price will increase as demand increases on an asset with limited supply.
Yep.
Now, stocks, bonds, and real estate are kind of unique because they generate their own cash flow to give money back to you. Stocks do this through dividends, bonds through interest, and real estate through rent. Those cash flows come from other people deciding to put their money into the consumption pile, which becomes revenue for these three asset classes. But all of these other assets really only make returns by having more people buy in at a progressively higher price. When the stock market crashes, what is really happening is everybody trying to grab their cash out of that particular asset market.
Yeah.
They do this either because they think the market won't generate as much cash flow in the future, or more often, just to get their cash out before everybody else lowers their price by taking their cash out.
Yeah.
Now, if you were lucky enough to get your cash back before everybody else, you have a choice. During a lot of market crashes, people just want to hold on to their cash because they are afraid they will lose their jobs and nothing else is generating cash flow. But eventually, you will need to put your money somewhere. And that predicament is what is creating such a big problem right now. Sure, maybe you think that the stock market might be an AI-fueled bubble, but if you sell your positions, where exactly should you put your money? Gold is at all-time highs. Real estate is risky with today's interest rates. Cryptocurrency is highly correlated with the stock market. Goods and services are more expensive than ever, and people are even starting to question the long-term
Consumption. Take all your money out of the stock market, out of gold, out of housing, out of bonds, and have a fucking rager. I'm saying a party, dude. Lambo, drinks, cocaine, yacht rental, pizza delivery, Uber Eats every day, gifted subs, more gifted subs, Enron hats, gifted subs again, Sour Patch Kids. That's investing in yourself.
safety of the bond market. People are quickly running out of safe platforms to stand on, which has got a few people saying that maybe these markets aren't actually broken. Maybe it's the money that's broken. So it's time to learn how money works, to find out if money actually works. This video is sponsored by Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management platform efficient to impact on the way that you live your life, even if you don't actually have that much in any one of these respects.
Hey, W Gifties! That's a man pulling his money out of the stock market. Wait, let me give a thank you. Thank you for the gifties. Almost Polly. It's not unethical. Everyone, please buy Odoo. No matter what you do or what you need, I want you to go to odoo.com/howmoneyworks, and I want you to buy it. And I want you to spend all your money on it and buy the golden subscription platinum package. Okay? I, Brandon Ewing, fully support Odoo and every single thing that they do. And I'm vouching for it. And this is an ad read. And it's for this video.
Piles. Increasing housing prices have become a defining financial problem of young generations as people can't afford a place to start their own lives or their own families. House prices have outpaced...
Dude, flash forward 3 months and it's like, Odoo found using child slave labor to build.
inflation by a lot, which I know is not exactly shocking to most of you, especially if you have watched any of the dozens of videos we have made about the structural problems and broken incentives in the housing market. But the key here is that when we measure price increases relative to inflation, we are only measuring relative to the consumption pile here with the consumer price index. The problem with this is that it doesn't reflect the changing gaps between these other money piles. Real estate, for example, has grown faster than consumer prices, but relative to fixed assets like gold, it's actually gone backwards. An article published by Jonathan Hobbs, a chartered financial analyst, compiled this data to show that if you were paying for the average American house today in gold, you would be spending about half as much as you would have been back in 1991, and roughly a quarter of what you would have been paying in the early 2000s. Now, the article itself used this data to build a case for
gold has retained your purchasing power, in fact, increased it. If instead of buying a house, you bought gold, now you could buy 2 or 3 houses.
Buying gold. But the reality is basically any assets would have had the same effect. If you were paying in S&P 500 indexes, the relative fall in house prices would have been even greater. So there are 2 lessons from this. One is that investing is—
What if you build a house out of gold? Now you're thinking like Donald Trump. Have your cake and eat it too. If you build in a house entirely made out of gold, well, then you get real estate inflation and asset inflation, gold inflation. You're both. They're double dipping.
It's important. I hope you already knew that. But the deeper lesson here is that it's become much easier for people with lots of money in these piles to buy basically anything they want from these piles. There is only so much money that people can spend on consumption, so wealthy people naturally throw the rest into one of these. As they have grown, they've provided more money to people who own them, and since most of them were already—
So what you're saying, in short, is that all of the extra printed money that we have done forever, but especially since 2008, and especially since 2020, has led primarily to asset inflation, which has hidden the inflation from regular people, but it's led to more expensive real estate, more expensive stocks, more expensive university education. Anything scarce has gone way up, while our regular day-to-day goods and services haven't gone up that much, so it's been hidden from us. But it makes the actual good, scarce things in life more and more out of reach for the regular citizen. Ever since 2008. It's interesting. That's fucking interesting.
Already maxing out what they could throw into consumption, they put even more back into these piles, creating a feedback loop of wealth generation. A basic look at the historic numbers makes this pretty clear. Market returns over the past 60 years have averaged just over 10%, and inflation has—
Regular inflation is also really bad? Yeah, regular inflation is bad. Don't get me wrong, but more specifically than I'm thinking of is like, in 2008, we printed untold billions, 800 billion plus more, to bail out the housing market. And people said this will cause inflation. And it really didn't, in terms of like regular goods and services. Like, people didn't see gas prices go up. They didn't see like the stuff they buy at the store go up. And so it was like, oh, well, then we can do this. But what you didn't see was that most of that money just got put into these piles. And we did start to get inflation in asset prices, real estate, stocks, anything scarce. Again, college education. All scarce things went up in value. And, back then it's only a little bit at a time. So it's like, well, society's still mostly functioning. But it kept going and going and going until this stuff was completely out of reach of a regular person on a regular salary. But because they could still buy normal goods and services, the system kind of chugged along. But then in 2020, so much money was printed that it broke through into regular asset prices, like consumption. And so we had actual inflation, 10, 20% inflation on like groceries and restaurants and McDonald's. And that's when it started to break down for people, because now everything's out of reach.
Averaged just over 4%. If you include taxes, this generally means if you can consume less than 4% of your invested assets annually, you can live forever without touching your principal. This basic arithmetic is the foundation of things like the financial independence retire early movement. But for extremely wealthy people who can easily afford to live on less than 4% of their net worth, they can compound wealth faster than they can spend it. Now compare this to most people who earn their income by selling their time. Most wage increases are indexed to consumer prices if you are lucky, which has been the slowest growing one of these piles. This has made it harder and harder for the wages to compete when both groups want to put their money into the same area. A lot of what the wealthy are buying is different from what working people are buying. But there are some areas where these cross over. Real estate is just the most obvious and socially destabilizing example of that. The reason this is happening now is that the growth in these asset piles has become unprecedented. We have been paying a lot of attention to what the money printer has done to consumer prices, but these other money piles have soaked up much of the excess cash, and it has put non-asset owners further behind.
Yeah.
Now, the point of this is not that inequality has become worse. You already knew that. But a new problem coming from that is how these increasingly consolidated markets are behaving. According to the Fed, participation in the stock market is approaching all-time highs, which sounds like a good thing. But this has mainly been driven by lots of people investing very small amounts of money through platforms with low fees and low barriers to entry like Robinhood.
Robinhood warriors, rise up!
These asset markets is more consolidated than it has ever been, with the top 10% of households owning 93% of all equities the last time this data was collected at the end of 2024. In a market panic, the reason why people sell their assets is because they want to make sure they have enough cash on hand to cover their most basic consumption needs if they lose their source of income, which for most people is their job. Unfortunately, job losses and market downturns often go hand in hand. However, as these assets have become more consolidated amongst people who can easily cover their living expenses several times over, there have consistently been more people with lots of spare cash to buy in versus the people that need to sell out to cover themselves in a hard time.
Yep.
But another way, if unemployment was to hypothetically spike tomorrow for any particular reason, most of the people losing their jobs would not have a meaningful pile of assets to sell to cover themselves while they were looking for a new job. And it's not like we would miss the consumers either. A majority of the consumer spending in the economy now comes from the top 10% of households, and corporate profits are primarily driven by selling stuff to other corporations. Sounds pretty bad, right? Well, it gets worse. Remember those record-setting stock buybacks from earlier? Well, they have outnumbered net household share purchases 6-1, adding even more people to the side piling money in. If you add this to the rise of index funds that mindlessly buy and hold a broad selection of shares, it's easy
he's
to
on to
see how
something.
lopsided the market has become.
He's cooking.
This does not mean that markets can't fall, but what it does mean is that they can stretch far further and stay irrational far longer than they could ever before, and while they do, they are throwing off money like never before for people to buy up every other asset market. Sounds pretty bad, right? Well, it gets worse. A huge amount of this money recently has been tied up in chasing returns from...
You can't do that at the end. No, the rule of at the end of a YouTube video, you go, sounds pretty bad, right? Well, it could go, like some people say, it could actually be better. That's how you're supposed to end. You have 15 seconds left. You don't say it gets worse, 15 seconds left. That's not appropriate. You have to give people a little silver lining so they can click to the next video and smile.
AI. These companies have spent trillions of dollars on this project, so far. But watch this video next to find out how it's costing all-
I'm not watching it, you depress me. No, I mean, listen, the main thing is like, so much of this consumption thing is the top part of the K. The K-shaped economy, the top 10%. They're doing all the spending, keeping everything else kind of afloat. And why I'm saying this stock price number for NVIDIA, for example, matters, and really matters in real financial terms, is that these people only spend because they feel wealthy because the stock price for NVIDIA is high. So they look into their accounts and they go, I have a lot of money, therefore I can go on this vacation, I can go to this restaurant, I can spend. If the stock market were to take a tumble, it's real money that's lost because these people can no longer spend, which hits consumption, which hits everything, which hits everyone's jobs, which hits... So that it's like not a... It's nothing fake about it. I think this guy knows this, but I'm just saying, like, the reality matters. That number does matter. But cool, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.